Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in today's video, sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, I'm going to give you every bit of knowledge I have about Lost Canyon, and a lot changed now that you can use 6 armies. I really wasn't as prepared for it as I would have liked, but in arguably one of the toughest groupings of kingdoms in the game that has ever happened, that's 1960, 1093, 2377, 606, 365, and a bunch of other kingdoms as well, okay? I've been able to climb to first place, and although I can't hold it, I have at least been able to get there, which is pretty impressive given how insanely competitive it is with those kingdoms in the bracket. So this is not my first Canyon guide, by the way. I've got some of the most watched Canyon guides for the game. Consider subscribing if this is the sort of information you're interested in, because let's get after it, all right? There is a lot you need to know about battling in Canyon and the 6-march configuration. And I'm going to show this to you by battling against, well, maybe not battling against, showing you the setup of arguably one of the single strongest players in the game, hands down, and that is Osno. So let's get a look, and I think there's a lot to learn from what he's doing, okay? Now, in the 6-march configuration of Canyon, a lot changes. Normally in 5-march Canyon, you can actually have, you know, only a small number of lanes sort of represented, and you're only committing like one army to handling whatever your enemy does in the other lanes. And you can make your enemy commit 2 lanes to your one army. That's why typically in, you know, Canyon, you'll see Liu Che down in the bottom in 5-march Canyon, and 4 armies up top, or a sort of reverse setup of that, where they line up on the bottom with 1 army up top with the Liu Che. That's why you see that, okay? Because you can have 1 lane handle 2 lanes of theirs, 50% of the board. You can't do that here, and there's a couple strategies that are used. The strategy that Osno is using is, I think, the best strategy you can use, and that is to basically have a very, very, very high DPS top lane. Okay, he's got Guan Yu with Skippy Prime and Huo with Arthur. And I don't think you can do better than that at this moment in time for a top lane. And then he's got a lane below it that is supporting that. Okay, so he's got Trajan with he's got Mulan. Trajan with Mulan, giving a ton of buffs to his top lane. And defensively, remember, your defense swings up, your attack swings down. So the significance of this in this case is that not only has he stacked incredible DPS into his top lane, he's stacked the most ridiculous buffs from both Trajan and Mulan to support his top lane, but then he's got Zhuge Liang reducing enemies' damage, and potentially even Hermann Prime landing some poison stacks onto my top lane as well. So he's basically creating a situation where he's going to sweep the top and then clean the rest of my board with his high DPS units that are in the top lane. Okay, that is Osno's game plan, which means, as you can see, his bottom 2 lanes are there to stall. He's got Liu Che with Constantine, and he's got Ashurbanipal, which feels kind of weird, but with Shajar. So just like a good newish archer, and then Shajar, who is, you know, the Constantine equivalent. And in case you didn't know, both Constantine and Shajar give you an insane heal when they get low, and Shajar makes it so you take less damage for a time. So that is why those are very, very, very powerful combinations. So the entire Osno strategy is what I would recommend. And I'm using his name, but it's really a put your DPS in the top lane, protect that DPS, and stall in the other lanes, which is very similar to what you're probably already doing in Canyon. Okay, that is almost certainly something you were already doing. You just take it to an extreme, and you need more tankiness to get that done, which is why he's got the Shajar and the Constantine off to the side. Now, I will show you how I do against it. I'm going to lose. I can't possibly beat him as well with the caliber of his accumulated equipment advantage and armament advantage. It is disgusting. And people show up in my live streams and, you know, some jackass is like, it's copium. No. You don't understand how the game works. These things are incredibly powerful. And once you have enough advantage, it doesn't matter what your opponent is doing, you're uncounterable. I will try my best to counter it anyways. Okay. Now, the way that I'm going to attack, okay, is I'm going to try to get my I'm going to basically try to do what he's doing, but in reverse. And it's hard for me to do that because once he knocks out my Liu Che, I'm going to be in big trouble. And the other reason it's hard for me to do that in reverse is that this defensive setup that he has is going to force my DPS to like be far away from my Trajan and far away from the support of my Zhuge Liang, which is going to be a real bummer. So I want to put my highest DPS stuff onto the bottom lanes here. Now, one of the most important concepts in this game mode is AOE damage. AOE damage is the alpha and the omega. It is everything you need to know about Canyon in one acronym, AOE. Okay, there's more to it than that, but like AOE is everything. So actually getting your AOE to land on multiple enemy units is the name of the game in Canyon. I have Ragnar in here for that purpose. And my goal is to get Ragnar to hit as many units as possible to maximize the DPS that he's going to deal. So I'm going to slow my Ragnar. I think if I slow my Huo, God, I'm really stretching. I don't know the timing because I have not actually fought this dude in ages because I know I can't win. But my goal is to try to push through the DPS on his Liu Che. All right. Then I'm going to finish off the Asher Benapal, which hopefully my Huo Nevsky has done good work on that. My Arthur with Philip, I think, is a suboptimal combination. Unfortunately, I have combo armaments, so it is what it is. We'll talk more about the specific commanders you use in just a minute. And hopefully the Zhuge Liang with Hermann Prime helps me push through some damage onto his Liu Che, but you will see his top lane absolutely rips me a new one on this Liu Che. And like, look, you think my gear is slacking? I'm not slacking here, man. Like, the stuff this guy's got is so insane. He's going to make it look like I'm not wearing gear. And that's the whole point of his setup. All right. So this attack configuration that I'm doing, I actually think is very strong. And I'm basically trying to tank his high damage up top while dealing more damage to his tanks. You're basically racing, no matter how you slice it in this game mode. And I'm betting, I know I'm going to lose this bet, but I'm betting that I can take out his tanks before he takes out mine. It's not going to work. And it is what it is. Theoretically, I could try this a little bit differently, kind of like this. And this is the other way I could slice it. I know this is going to go extremely poorly because I've done this before. Theoretically, if I had a Shajar army, this might be the way to counter it, but I'm going to run it like this, and you'll see how it goes. I think you want to see me fight arguably the #1 guy in the world, so let's do that here, okay? So we're hoping that the Ragnar and Skippy, ideally both of them, land AoE damage on multiple targets. I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm quite confident I will lose. Here we go. Did I get the timing? Ooh, I really blundered that spacing. So I think I blundered that spacing. I might be able to hit this army. I think if I relocated, I could, but I don't think it's going to matter. Anyways, you can see that my Liu Che is getting absolutely decimated faster than his is. And that is just going to be a huge problem for me. Although I am taking out his Shajar, once my Trajan starts taking this beatdown, it's really kind of game over for me because you can see it's over big time. His Liu Che is actually shockingly tanky here. I am absolutely rolled here. Yeah, totally cooked. And so by the time these 3 armies can join the party, he's got 4 and it's GG. Big game over situation for me. I might be able to take out something after this Trajan, but probably not even. Yeah. And that's how that goes. So I think that is the #1 strategy. And there's a reason that, I think what people would I don't know, does anyone even debate whether or not he has the strongest team? I guess there are other people that might have stronger. But that's what the strongest team in the game kind of looks like. All right. Now, as far as composition goes, obviously there are some really important commander pairings that will propel you to the top here. And many of these are very uncontroversial, and I want to share them with you. One of them is a Trajan combination. You're going to use either Trajan with Mulan or Trajan with Shajar. If you don't have leadership gear, if you don't have these commanders, let me tell you something right now. never under any circumstance should you make an investment into Canyon, specifically for Canyon. You should only ever invest in your open field. If it works in Canyon, great. If it doesn't, then don't. It is a noob trap to build into Canyon, because what do you gain from this? Ego, baby. This league is 100% ego. The rewards are not worth. The entire purpose of having commanders and equipment and armaments is that they are a multiplier for your speed ups and resources and your troop loss if you're swarming stuff. That's the whole thing. Okay? There's no permanent losses here. The gains are borderline irrelevant, which I think is a good thing. This is 100% ego. Do not ever invest into anything for this. It is pure ego. And spoiler alert, unless you're one of like a dozen people, you'll always bump into somebody stronger and your ego will get shattered. It's just a question of when. So never under any circumstance should you invest for this. I've said that in videos for like 4 or 5 years. That's not new advice from me, but I just wanted to emphasize that, okay? So a lot of people are going to say I don't have leadership stuff. Yep, it is what it is. Best of the best are using Trajan. They are using leadership stuff. And Mulan or Shajar is what you pair with that. Ideally, it's echelon formation. And ideally, you focus on one troop type, because echelon is not a universal troop typing. You got to pick a troop. And so ideally, I think you go for infantry or archers. Archers are probably better for the Shajar possibility, and Echelon is just insane buffing your team. I've talked about that so much, I won't do it again here. Okay. The next combination that is deeply uncontroversial and extremely powerful is Liu Che primary, Constantine secondary. I've tried it the other way around. Seems to work better with the Liu Che as the primary. I actually think Constantine will live longer, but the issue is that you don't do nearly as much damage. And so for that reason, Liu Che primary, Constantine secondary becomes one of your tankiest options. All right. From there, I really like Zhuge Liang and Hermann Prime. Now, this combination is shockingly critical. And the reason I say it's shockingly critical is that you will notice in this game mode that you actually bring more troops than you do in regular Canyon. This is actually critical because your troops will live longer, and when they live longer, a stacking debuff like what you get from Hermann Prime is way more valuable. Like, I tried Zhuge with Shajar, and that works really well for me in regular Canyon, but is terrible, I found. You need to have a home for the Hermann Prime in Lost Canyon. He's one of the most underrated commanders in this game mode. Is Hermann Prime. You stack up those poisons and you freaking slap, man. It is so good. Okay, from there, Huo with Arthur is typically your carry DPS. If you made combo, sucks to suck. It's not meta right now. I'm sure it will be at some point. But what I mean by a sort of carry DPS role is that the Huo with Arthur exists to just absolutely destroy your enemy while taking almost no damage. Also, ideally, your Huo is expertised because you will heal such a stupid amount. It is insane. That said, a lot of people prefer to not have their Huo expertised for the open field. Never do anything for Canyon, ever. Okay? So if you prefer it the other way for open field, then don't expertise it for the sake of Canyon, my opinion. All right? But it is better, in my opinion, expertised for Canyon for that incredible heal. And like you heal so much with that. It's actually kind of dumb. And Guan with Skippy seems to edge out the Ragnar with Skippy. I happen to use Ragnar Skippy because I fell for the sort of, it's not exactly a noob trap, but like I built attack gear for my infantry, the full infantry set. Okay. Because that is technically better for Ark of Osiris. I don't play Ark of Osiris anymore at all. So the fact that I have the sort of 6-piece set over here for infantry really, 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 really dramatically harms me and Canyon, because these two pieces being defense is sort of the difference between your being able to run this army in the front line or not. This army cannot take damage the way that I have it set up. Even though if I had the defense gear, I could. And I'm telling you, I can use this army as a carry DPS as an alternative to the Huo Arthur. But anytime I need to actually take damage, I'm kind of cooked. All right. I am kind of cooked. The other way I could have lined up against Osno is to put my DPS into his, but like spoiler alert, his is better. So I know 100% I'm going to lose that. So the only way you can beat someone with a stronger setup than you is to counter their setup and the way that they've stationed their troops. All right. And where things get kind of interesting is like, what is your 6th army that you bring? Okay. And I mentioned that because if you just get rid of the 6th army in each of these setups, they would actually be identical to what people are probably already running in regular Canyon. So all they're doing is they're taking the regular Canyon setups here and they're adding a 6th army for the most part. Okay. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Bro put the wrong Ragnar in here. That's actually kind of hilarious. That's actually... Wait, what's going on here? Anyways, Huo Ragnar is actually good, even though it's the wrong troop typing. It works. It's so weird, but I swear to you it works. I swear to you it is. Still good, even not in an artifact KVK. Anyways, most of what these guys are doing is they add in a 6th march. The 6th march they add in is the extra off-lane tank march, and that is current meta in the form of a Shajar. What I have done, because I don't have that, is I'm using Huo with Nevsky. Huo with Nevsky is what I have. It works well. What I've seen people do that actually is shockingly good is they'll put a siege tower in there. And before you lose your mind over that, siege tower has a really weird advantage. What the enemy will do is they'll put a tower march down over here. I'll switch these. So pretend this is a tower. What happens is that the enemy's marches travel way over here, off into Narnia. So not only do you lose like 8 seconds of march time to get to the tower, then it's like 8 seconds of march time to get back to the action. You get wrecked. Honestly, tower in this spot is shockingly relevant. Shockingly relevant. I'm telling you. It's weird how relevant that is and effective that is. Most people don't do it because I think it's just not as good. That's another option for like, what do you put in that last march? You can see Wild Lion over here is using Nevsky Joan. I don't think that's the meta choice personally, but you know, his team does also obviously slap. And you can see Nevsky Joan being used over here by Johnny from GT. So it's not like this is like a one-off phenomena. In fact, I'm kind of curious now to hit them and kind of like see what they're up to. So maybe we'll just try to match them real quick and see what that looks like. For obvious reasons, like I'm not hitting my own kingdom in Lost Canyon, even for video purposes, but okay. I see what they're up to here. Okay, so let's talk about this configuration. Arguably, this is a configuration I should potentially copy. So the alternative to running the double tanky off lane like Osno was doing, okay, is to instead put a tank and a DPS behind the tank. And I don't think this is as strong, but I do think it's very close. And the advantage of this is just like how if you put a tower all the way over here, I'd march over to Narnia. You're trying to keep my armies separated from my main force. That's your kind of goal when you run a setup like this. Okay, so I'm going to use the siege march to make it so I don't run too far forward with my cavalry. And how do I want to do this? I want to put my carry DPS in the most protected position here. And in my perfect world, my Arthur will swing up top. But there is a really weird phenomena that I might be able to force to happen. And I don't know if this is a bug or not. But sometimes when the enemy sets up like this, and a part of the reason that this setup became so popular, and you might consider emulating it, is that what will happen is that potentially the Ragnar swings underneath and the Arthur swings underneath. So all your armies are like literally off the map, and are no longer getting the benefit of the Trajan, which if I attack like that and that happens, I'm actually just going to lose. I'm almost certainly going to lose. So let's see. I mean, I might win, I might not. It's hard for me to say. This really mitigates a lot of what my Zhuge Liang can do to offer support here, but I do feel like the Arthur with Philip that I'm running gives me more DPS, which is the most important thing to me, onto these armies. So let's try it this way. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Let's just hit play and see what happens here, okay? I'm most interested to see if my armies both swing beneath, and I think they might, which would be really tragic for me. But I almost hope it happens so I can show it to you. That did not go the way I wanted, and honestly, that could single-handedly be the reason that I lose. So I needed the Ragnar to connect first. I need to put a siege unit on the Arthur so that the Arthur goes up top. You may think, Chisgule, why is that such a big deal? Well, my Philip is behind that, and I'm not Philip buffing all the stuff that I have on top here, which is critical. And now is the part where I get into trouble. I'm going to lose this Trajan in a second, and he's still going to have a Trajan. Technically, I have a little bit of advantage, but my rage bars are starting over. And this is where I lose, specifically because the Arthur didn't go to the right spot, which is actually just kind of nuts. We'll see if I can pull this off. I don't know that I can at this point. It's going to be very, very close. Okay, the Nevsky wasn't... Huo Nevsky wasn't attacking for a second. And I think I just lose this now. And his carry DPS is just going to take me, which is a bit of a bummer for me. Yeah, I think he's just got me here. GG's. The accumulated equipment and armament advantage really, really stacks up. Now, I might be able to get him if I do that a little differently. I can try to show that to you to see like how critical that is. If you weren't aware of how the siege unit timing works, right? When I put a siege unit on this, now it's going to go slower, but the moment I get into combat, that siege unit's going to go away. I don't know if this is going to make any difference at all into whether or not I win. I think it matters, but let's find out, okay? So we connect. Even better. I got to show you this weird situation. Even better. So this is why people run the double bottom defense, because I don't know if it's a bug or what, but sometimes both your armies go below. And this really screws me because now my Ragnar wasn't even getting buffed from the Trajan. It's like the benefit of the Trajan and the Mulan is completely unrealized. So that is why that configuration is powerful, is because you can kind of cheat your enemy's marches to go where I don't know that they're supposed to go. Will I do better anyways? If I do, I would say that's incredible and might be to randomness. Am I actually going to win despite having had that go much more poorly? That's insane. I suppose one thing that is worth mentioning is that although you will pretty consistently get a similar result every time, there is still randomness, right, in what your armies do. And sometimes you just win because of a lucky break. Like if my Trajan goes before your Trajan, or a silence lands with Guan especially, like that could be the difference maker. But let's see if he's got, oh, he's got the expertise. Look at that heal. He healed for 5,000. It's so powerful. And he's healed probably many times like that over the course of this battle. Let's see if I can show you how much healing he got off his Huo. I think you'll be really shocked at what he pulled from that. Okay. So I get the win. I go to the history. And in case you didn't know, you can look at the statistics, and there's a lot of really important information you can get from here. But his Huo healed 22,559 units. That's massive, man. That is massive. Okay. For perspective, you know how Constantine has a massive heal and people consider it to be like, wow, it's life-changing? The life-changing Constantine heal is 33,700. Okay. So he does 2/3 of a Constantine heal. Bro, that is gross. That is gross. Now, mine also healed that much. Okay. 23,555. So, like, it is an insane amount of healing that you can get from that. Absolutely insane. Okay, cool. So, what other things do I want to share with you? Right. So, you may be sitting here thinking, Chisgule, you've spent all this time talking about a 6th March. I don't have a 6th March, bro. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do? So good news, I can empathize. I have an account that doesn't have a 6th March, and I can climb with this account into the top 20, but I typically can't hold the top 20. Okay, so I go without a 6th March. I do the best I can. Right now, I'm ranked 72. Okay, and literally, I have an army here that has no equipment and it just has some armaments. It's the Herman with what have I put him with? Esong. I mean, I don't have the commander depth. I don't have the stuff. The armaments are pretty crap here. I mean, actually, they're better than I remember, but they don't have any inscriptions on it. And for an army like this, where you just apply some armaments and you don't even have any equipment, and look, money where my mouth is, man. Canyon is only for ego. So if that's true, like I'm not building a single piece of equipment for this commander. No. But the key to that, if you're going to have a no gear commander, is that you put it behind something that has gear. And you want to do that so that it's not tanking. Because the effects and debuffs that this army offers they're good. Okay. They're definitely good. But it can't take a hit. So you want to avoid taking a hit in an ideal world. So what I'm using here is sort of a box configuration. I might be better off with something like this, mirroring kind of what we saw from the Johnny defense, the way he had that set up. You could totally make an argument for this. It might be better. I could try to like cheat the enemy's armies away, and that also is fine. But both like the box and I don't know what to call it, like the Tetris config here. I mean, why am I calling this the Tetris config? If you've ever played Tetris, you know what happens. You end up with like a spot where you want to get the perfect shape to go, but then you never get that shape. Anyways, so we got this gap here, the Tetris gap. This also I think is very strong. Super powerful DPS. I'm doing the same thing that Osno was doing. It's just I don't have the commanders to kind of run it in the same way. But up top, I have big DPS supported by Philip, Zuge, Trajan, Mulan. And then the rest of this is just trying to live long enough for my top lane to win. Right? It's the same idea. All right. And there it is. You enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here. Consider subscribing. I have been making the most popular Canyon guides for quite some time. So if you enjoyed it, throw a like on here, subscribe. I want to emphasize for the 3rd time in the video that you should invest in your open field because it is a multiplier for speed ups and resources. It's not even like remotely controversial to say that, but always keep that in mind. And with regard to things that are really good in Canyon that I wouldn't recommend for field, the biggest one is probably just on my main account actually, and that is a lucky coin. And a lucky coin on a Constantine is actually insane. And that is because whenever Constantine gets a shield, he takes 40% less skill damage for the next 3 seconds. So you really want to put some shields onto your Constantine in an ideal world. Okay, ideal world. Skippy Prime also can distribute shields, but typically the Skippy Prime is nowhere near your Constantine. All right, there it is. GG's. If you're looking for the last time I put together a Canyon guide where I break down some of the fundamentals a little bit more in depth, I'm going to have a card in the end screen. Go check that one out. All right. Until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies. Take care, everybody.